r/AskReddit. What knowledge might save your life one day? I remember reading in a Reddit post similar to this, that if you can't do a pull-up you probably won't have the strength to pull yourself up off a ledge, and that has stuck with me ever since. In theory it's very true, but I would guess most people could if some serious adrenaline is involved. Have you seen most people? The instinct of wolves will only cause them to attack/hunt you if they can intimidate you into fleeing from them. Standing your ground against a wolf pack will be terrifying, but will eventually cause them to bugger off. Tigers as well. Don't turn your eyes away from a tiger. There is a story of a boy that had to walk backwards for 3 hours back to his village, being stalked by a tiger. The cost benefit of a prey animal even slightly hurting a tiger is not worth it. It could mean a death sentence in the wild. I broke eye contact by looking down with a tiger yesterday that was behind a fence 3 feet away, and he jumped at me. I looked up and he was standing straight up with his arms stretched above his head and claws on the fence. I swear to God he was at least 8 foot tall. I very nearly shat myself. Edit, spelling. That water you're about to dive into might not be as deep as you think. Always just step in and swim down to check for depth. Then jump. Always do this. My dad told me a story about a group of guys he knew from school. After graduation they all went up to someone's lake house, and one guy decided to dive off the dock as soon as they got there. The water was shallow that year, and when he dove in he broke his neck and died on impact. If someone is trying to abduct you, fight back. Most abductors will just give up if they meet resistance. And whatever you do, don't let them take you to another location. You ain't taking me to no secondary location. Street smarts. If the tide suddenly goes out unexpectedly, run like you stole it. For higher ground. I read about a 10-year-old English girl who had just learned this before going on vacation with her family to Thailand. Then the big tsunami that killed a few 100,000 came. She saw the water retreat and the other tourists walk out on the exposed seafloor. She freaked out and convinced everybody to run for higher ground. A lot of people were saved by a little girl who had paid attention in school. They later brought a lot of flowers to the teacher. Imagine how terrifying that must be, knowing that a huge unstoppable wave is traveling hundreds of kilometers per hour to your location, and most people don't listen to you, just thinking you're a stupid kid who doesn't know any better. If you are ever bitten by a bat, raccoon, fox, or skunk, go directly to the hospital. There is no cure for rabies once it is fully onset. Out of all history only 5 people survived rabies, Meredith Palmer being one of the 5. If you're ever charged by a moose, get behind a tree. They have about a 10-inch blind spot and they'll lose you. That's what ski patrol would always say when there were an increase in moose sightings on the mountain. They'd tell you to stay out of the trees when skiing unless a moose is running at you. Then find trees, because unless you've got a steep hill or are already up to speed, the moose is probably faster than you think. Was watching a video of someone driving alongside a moose while it was running in snow that was about chest high to the moose, and it was hauling ass. I knew they were fast, but I never realized how fast until I saw that video. When people say to take an aspirin to help during a heart attack, chew the pill. Don't swallow it whole. It gets absorbed much quicker. Edit, last bit. Thanks for the silver. Whoa. I wouldn't have known that. Thanks. Let's have heart attacks and try it out. All snakes in Victoria, Australia are venomous. Just assume all snakes are venomous and stay away. Edit, 1 letter. Yeah, you ain't gonna catch me going up to a snake, even if I know it ain't venomous. If a person asks you for something in the street, a light, the time, whatever, always keep the person in your eye line. So if they ask for the time, don't just look down at your watch. Raise your arm slightly so your watch is in sight. I was told this years ago at a self-defense thing at a corporate retreat type of event, and I wondered if it was ever going to be useful or just something to pad out the teacher's session. Then, a decade later, I was on the street late at night on my way home, and someone approached me and asked for the time. I did this, told him the time, and he just kinda stood there. Then he started asking some weird, clearly improvised, question about how he was looking for his friend's house. And he was sure it was on that street. And he had a yellow car similar to the one behind me. I didn't look back but just said yeah. Yellow. And he pointed directly behind me. I said yeah. The yellow car. I saw it as I walked by. So. He paused for a second. Looking like that meme of the woman with the equations around her head. Then just yelled "Oh, FCKU," and stormed off. It was only afterwards I realized that I think he wanted me to look away so he could slug me. But he wasn't prepared to attack someone that was looking right at him. I used to bicycle commute through a bad neighborhood. 99.99% of the time I had no issues. I had an old bicycle and didn't look like I had money. One morning though, 14 stepped into the street, forming a loose line across my path. One said "Hey man, got a light?" and I knew that it was bullshit. I didn't slow down or talk with them. I looked one of the kids directly in the eye, aimed my bicycle at him, and pedaled as hard as I could. He instinctively jumped out of the way, and the others were caught off guard, so they didn't attempt to grab me. Oh hit. Something similar happened to me near the city center at a four-way crossing. I saw a guy right in the middle of the crossing, a small traffic island, look at me, and then cross the street. Then out of nowhere these four guys formed a loose linear on the opposite side of the road. Something made the hair on my back stand up. Instead of crossing the road straight, I went to the right and I saw this guy looking at me early across the street back. Never felt so afraid. Always felt as if I got out of some trouble that day. If you've been buried alive in a standard coffin, stay calm. If you are alive you haven't been buried that long. Also the dirt above you hasn't set yet. Most coffins are not built to last once buried, and as a result have weak siding. So here is what you do. Pull your shirt over your head. You don't want to be swallowing dirt. Position yourself so you are as sideways in the coffin as possible with hands and feet pushing on the long sides. Push. You should be able to blow out one of the walls. Start crawling up. Do not panic. You may not find a grip immediately. Keep going until you make it out. Worst nightmare. Just reading that made me uncomfortable. Always leave your itinerary with someone. If you meet strangers, that is, potential bad people, on the road, always let them know that you are in touch with friends and family and that they know exactly where you are. You become less attractive as a victim. Edit. Always let strangers know that you have a destination and are expected at a particular time. 2. Always let strangers know that you have a destination and are expected at a particular time. 2. This is really useful when traveling in areas where taxis/tuk-tuks will try to bring you somewhere better. Just tell them you're meeting a friend and they shut up. I've also heard that not only say a friend, but make it more specific. Like I'm meeting my sister or my mom is waiting for me at the restaurant. Friend can sound more generic, but family members also imply that they will call someone if you don't show up, as they are typically closer to you than a friend can be. Not saying this is true in all situations, but making up specifics will help more than generic statements. If someone gets stabbed, do not take the knife out if possible. If it stays in, it acts as a plug to the hole and will reduce blood loss. Apply pressure around the wound as best as you can and call an ambulance. And if you get stabbed and the attacker withdraws the knife, seal off the wound with a credit card, especially if it's to the lung. Edit. I'm on my way out of the country and turned on my phone to find that this is putting people's lives in danger. By seal off the wound I meant create suction by putting the card flat on the wound. Don't just jam it in there and dig around. I saw this in an instructional video for police like a year ago. And if you get stabbed and the attacker withdraws the knife, do not reinsert the knife back into the wound. If you're unsure about the movement of a tornado, put a straight object such as a tree or a street light in between you and the tornado. It'll make it way easier to see which way the tornado is moving. If the tornado appears to not be moving, it's coming right at you. Edit. Usually the only reference you will have is the width. If it doesn't appear to be moving, but is getting wider, it's coming towards you, at which point you want to move perpendicular to its movement. Thank you/start button for clearing that up. In my experience, the easiest way to check if the tornado is getting wider is using an object such as a light post. This is the stuff that makes the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. I have never seen a tornado, but Jesus duck. The thought of one coming straight at me is just so awesome and creepy. I live in a country that doesn't get them, but I feel exactly the same way from reading that. They sound completely horrifying. I've been ambushed by a very bad storm while skiing and had to face the prospect of digging in for the night. Thank you, French Mountain Rescue. You are genuinely ducking hardcore. But at least if that happens, you're up a mountain and some sort of weird hit is sort of to be expected. Some howling demon thing appearing out of the clear sky is a very long way outside of my experience. Edit: I have been advised that they don't appear out of a clear sky, but instead out of some maelstrom of chaos that precedes them, which is even more terrifying. If you have to get out of moving car, then put one foot down and take a step. Don't just jump out. This will reduce your speed immensely. Sure, you will fall over, but at a much reduced speed. A stuntman told me this. I had to leave moving car that was going about 40 miles per hour. I was pregnant. I had a medium-sized person to pillow. The man driving the car had said he was going to kill us both if he couldn't have me, and was going in and out of oncoming traffic. I grabbed my bag and pillow and held the pillow across my stomach and opened the door and thought, if I go like a rag doll, except my arm holding my stomach and my other arm with my purse covered my face, but everything else I tried to relax. I stepped out and let myself fall and roll. It was amazing. I ended up with just a handful of bruises and scrapes, and I was fine. And my daughter is 14 now. We made it. Oh my god, that's awful. I'm so glad to hear you and your daughter are okay. Couldn't imagine that scenario if I tried. I read this possibly on another thread or even on this one. If you smell something close to fish or even urine, it's possible you may have an electrical fire. Electrical fires tend to smell like fish and, when exposed to high heat, urine. Or maybe your cat had a snack and decided to pee on the carpet. And if you smell rotten eggs, it's natural gas. Get out immediately and call 911. What won't kill you in Australia? The wildlife. What will kill you? Getting lost in the outback. If you're lost and out of fuel, stay with your vehicle. Move as little as possible during the day and stay in the shade. Conserve water. Rip off wing mirrors to shine at any search planes. You can drink your urine approximate 1-3 times before your kidneys start to pack it in. This is absolute last resort. To be fair, the wildlife can also kill you. Plot twist: lost in the Australian outback and a roo enters the passenger seat, points a gun at your head, and tells you to relocate. 120 people will get bowel cancer in their lifetime. You need some sort of screening starting at age 45-50 depending on your family history. Any blood in the stool needs to be checked out. Early cancers can be completely cured with keyhole surgery. You don't have to die of bowel cancer. In Australia, when you turn 50, the government starts sending you free testing kits every 2 years. Australia cares about their citizens. I see. EMT here. If you're ever choking on food in a public venue, do not go to the restroom to avoid causing a scene. Almost every death I've seen from people choking are found unconscious in a bathroom stall because they were too polite to seek help. I feel like if there's any situation in which it's okay to not be polite, it's when you're choking to death. I don't think people are necessarily thinking rationally when they are choking. For instance, if you see a video about signs of drowning, it's the opposite of what you'd think. Intuitively, we'd think a person struggling to stay afloat would be splashing and screaming and making a big scene. But they actually are so focused on trying to keep their head above water that they're quiet and moving very little. Regarding running to the bathroom, this happened to a good friend of mine. He was on a long drive and eating alone at a small restaurant and started choking and instinctively made a beeline to the bathroom. Thankfully, to get to the bathroom you had to pass the entrance to the kitchen, and the waiter was there and saw the alarm in his face. The waiter stopped him and asked him what was wrong, and my friend was able to communicate that he was choking. The waiter did the Heimlich maneuver and dislodged the food from my friend's throat. But had the bathroom been somewhere else, or had the waiter been busy at another table, my friend would have been one of those dead people on the bathroom floor that are preferred to ducking. Like and subscribe.